You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Monday. It is 2 p.m. Central. It is 3 p.m. Eastern. You know what's popping off in the world of crypto? I guess let's find out together, shall we? It is time for the Crypto Rundown. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are mainlining again these days. Hope your trading week is off to a good start. Of course, in these markets, in the crypto markets, it's pretty much 24/7. It never stops. There's no rest for the wicked out here. So should be some fun to talk about on the show today. Of course, remember, if you're listening just to the Crypto Rundown, you're missing out on a whole bunch of other great content on the network. So make sure wherever you get this, whatever podcast platform you're using, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, doesn't matter. It's on all of them. Make sure you're upgrading to the full network. Just type Options Insider Radio Network into your podcast provider of choice. That'll get you all of our content that's available on the on-demand side. And of course, if you want even more in your lives, and who doesn't, join us over there on the Pro. A lot of great content coming over there, I should say, as well, throughout the week, including Pro Q&As and indeed options oddities at the end of every week. So check that out over there on the Pro. As we see who's joining us on the old program this week, I'm pleased to welcome back our old pal, Mr. Bill, a.k.a. Bill Ulivieri from Cenacle Capital Management. Mr. Bill, welcome back to the Crypto Rundown, sir.
Hello, Mark. Great to be back.
It's been a while since we've chatted. How are things in the land of Cenacle, sir?
Things are going just fabulous. I mean, we've increased our assets under management over the last few months, which is always good. We have some inbound accounts coming. We're communicating well with our clients. We have a FINRA-approved messaging app, which our clients love because they can text us night or day, and it fulfills our requirement to archive communications with our clients. A lot of crypto, a lot of interest rate, a lot of interesting conversations going on with our clients, and we're actually getting toe dipping back into the world of options, which I think you would find really interesting. That your conversation on these weekly expiration options and some of the zero DTEs with your friends on the option Insider have inspired me to get the ThinkPipes platform all configured, and we are just doing cash secured put trading for our clients. And our running streak. I mean, we've got like 10 in a row of all successful trades, and so we're really, really excited about that. So this has been a lot of fun. It's been great getting back into options.
You're getting lured to the dark side, which means it's a good time to kick off the show, listeners. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's kick off the show with a little bit of the old Bitcoin Breakdown, of course, where we break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yes, it is Bitcoin, looking a little bit bigger at the start of the show than it was this time a week ago. We were at 59,586 on the show last week. This week when we kicked off the show, 63,629, slightly over 4,000 handles to the upside. 4,043 if you want to get precise out there. Of course, so we got a little bit higher over the weekend, 64,730, and the low came pretty much right after our show on Monday of 58,73. So we nearly broke 58,000 in the wrong direction. So nearly 7,000 handle range on the week. So a lot of action to get to. Mr. Bill, it's been a while since we've chatted with you here on the program, all the way since pretty much right around the 4th of July, nearly 2 months now. A lot popping off in the world of Bitcoin. We'll get to all the ETH fun in a second, but what's catching your eye out there in the big dog in the crypto space these days, sir?
I'll tell you what's catching my eye, Mark, and I find it absolutely fascinating that if you look at the high of Bitcoin on April 13th, 2021, 3.5 years ago, it was trading 63,306 versus your 63,629. So it's only up a couple of $100 in 3.5 years. Like, what's up with that? What I think is happening, and we're just barely eking out these new highs in April 2021, in the fall of, let's say, October again of 2021, beginning of 2022, and of course the peaks that we've made here in 2024. Really interesting to me that with the short-term interest rates up being so high, the secured overnight funding rate still at 5.33%. I guess the SOFR rate is the old LIBOR rate. That we used to use back in the day when we were on the trading floor. But I just find it really interesting that for the most part, Bitcoin, like the Russell 2000, like many asset classes, haven't really eked out much of a profit in like 3 years. I find that fascinating. So I think you got to pull back once in a while and take a look at the big picture.
Interesting coming from you, Mr. Bill, because you are a resident ray of sunshine here on the show.
I know.
We bring you on for a little bit of splash of optimism here on the show and kind of throwing cold water right out of the gate. So interesting. You were the one who called the end of the crypto winter way before. You were early on the optimism train.
I was. Now
you're like, pump those brakes, kids.
Well, I just find it interesting. That's all.
No, it is interesting. You're right. Looking at the frame of reference, and obviously it all comes down to frame of reference at the end of the day, listeners. But Bill is right. If you go back pretty much exactly 3 years, not a heck of a lot to show for all of it out there on the Bitcoin front. Let's see what we are showing on the vol front, shall we? Remember, all these analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. A lot of great stuff. We really just literally scratched the surface. There is a ton going on that we don't have time to squeeze in on the show over there. So check it out, amberdata.io. If you did that, you would see that the weekly vol continues to come in a little bit. Remember, we got extremely elevated back just a few weeks ago now with all the big mad sell-off and the Japanese unwind and VIX spiking to 65 on the cash and all sorts of craziness out there. We saw Bitcoin vol obviously skyrocket as well, continuing to come back to earth, even though I had a decent range last week, enough to keep it roughly in the same range as where it was this time a week ago. Last week on the weekly vol, we had about a 49. Coming in to start the show this week, slightly below 46, 45 and 3/4. So still frothy, but coming in a little bit. Same trend going on the 30-day front. We had a 51.5 this time a week ago. This week, right around 50.5, 50.4 to be precise. So coming in a little over a point out there, but pretty much staying right in line as well. And then on the Holdler front, the 6-month front, those folks getting a little bit spicier, a little bit juicier. It was 62 2/3 on this show this time a week ago. This time, it was at 63.40 when we kicked off the show this week. So longer term vol looking a little bit frothier out there, listeners. Let's go out to the skew front and see what's popping off out there. Weekly skew kind of remaining unched. In fact, that's kind of the deal right now, which is interesting because we had a decent range intra-week on Bitcoin, and yet the skew kind of hanging out right now telling us, at least for right now, the options market is not signaling a big bias in either direction. The weekly skew, negative 1.2 on the show last week, negative 1 this week, so not much change there. The 1-month skew, so a more standardized metric, was pretty much flat on the show last week, about a negative 0.5. This week it is literally flat, so nothing to see there. And going out a little bit farther, our 180-day skew was at about a positive 4 last week, 3.9 to be precise. This week, 2.4, so slightly biased to the upside. So if anything is of note in that, it's the fact that the longer-term holders not quite as optimistic right now as maybe they were or you would expect them to be, given just the upside bias we see that is usually par for the course out there on the Bitcoin front. Mr. Bill, anything catching your eye out there in either these vol or these skew numbers this week, sir?
Well, I think the vol numbers I find really interesting, Mark. Again, we're other than the Japanese yen unwind. I mean, still, it's the VIX is right back down to where it was, and of course, Bitcoin being a risk-on asset, you would kind of expect to see it's somewhat correlated to fear and greed and volatility. And so I guess I'm not that surprised. I mean, I kind of see it in my technical charts. I see it in the fact that Bitcoin is smack dab in the middle of the bell curve of its 10-week moving average. Not too high, not too low, and volatility seems to kind of flesh that out. So I think everybody's kind of waiting for this clock. The clock is getting wound, the alarm clock, the spring is getting wound, and I'm probably going to see this thing unwind sometime as we get closer to the election or slightly thereafter.
Ooh, the great unwind coming, says Mr. Bill. Interesting. Let's see if that's playing out here in some of the products you folks like to use as your Bitcoin options proxies in your securities account. Let's start out in Bitto land. Bitto at a 20.5 when we kicked off the show, up about 1 1/3 points this week. The ADV kind of treading water, was at 105,000 last week, 103,000 this week, so down 2,000, but not a huge change there. Even though if today is any indication, we might see that ADV starting to come in. That is the trend across the board. ADVs in the options world right now extremely inflated. VIX is averaging about 1.2 million contracts a day in the dog days of summer. That is a seasonal anomaly, especially this week. Usually nobody's around this week, listeners. Heading into Labor Day, everyone's out of the Hamptons or in the south of France. Nobody's slinging these products. So we'll see if these ADVs can hold up. If past is prologue, they will start to come in. The dog days of summer and usually the middle to end of December are two very seasonally quiet periods for vol and for the market. So I don't expect any of these products to be lighting the world on fire this week. And that is reflected in the numbers we're seeing today. Bitto only 46,000 contracts on the tape, so roughly half of its ADV. So looking pretty quiet. The vol also coming in quite a bit. It's at a 50 even right now, down about 7 points. In terms of size positions in Bitto, not much change there. The big dog is still about 125,000 of the Jan 30s in terms of what is dominating the docket. Right behind it, we have 85,000 of the Jan 35. So again, not much change there. In terms of action today, what little there is out there, the big dog, about 8,000 of the September 22 calls expiring next week. That's all opening paper as well. So some folks, if past is prologue, probably buying those and maybe looking for a little bit of Bitto action going into the end of next week. Mr. Bill, I know ever since you come on the show with us, you've been keeping an eye, maybe a distant eye, but an eye on Bitto. Anything catching your eye out there these days, sir?
Yeah, again, as I said, for our clients, we've been trading options, and we have a small handful of clients that are really into the cryptocurrency side. They've subscribed to our Bitcoin versus gold pairs strategy, which actually switched to gold in April of this year. But anyhow, we are looking to sell cash secured put options in Bitto. I kind of like the chart pattern. It looks a little bit different than Bitcoin, to be honest with you. column of X's. It's in the middle of the bell curve. I do think that, with the halvening that we had this year, the pressure is still going to be a little bit to the upside, although I can't explain the fact that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lower lows going from January of this year, February of this year, into the recent time period. But I think that we're definitely going to take a small portion of our client assets per their request, per the options agreement that we have with them, and do not only the Russell 2000, QQQ, Tesla, and those names, but just a touch of the BIDO, at the money or slight downside put options. Because again, these are clients that want to have exposure to cryptocurrency anyhow. And when we'll get a little bit more into the program, I'll tell you that one of the fundamental shifts we're doing with the Grayscale products, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah, the last time you were on, a little over a month ago, you were talking about maybe writing some puts in BIDO. That's still the case, huh? You looking at maybe weekly put options? What are we looking at? Somewhere in the mid-teens? Is that the BIDO put of choice right now?
For sure. Definitely, the weekly options. Keep things kind of close to the chest. But again, I don't mind getting assigned, and neither do my clients. So it's okay that, we have 80% of a portfolio is, it's just kind of old school ETFs of the S&P 500, QQQ, RFG, the pure growth ETF. So we have growth, we have some value, we have, liquid money market funds, paying 5.14%. We have the high yield bond funds paying 7.5%, 8%. So we're just, we're adding a little bit of extra alpha to the portfolio by getting in the positions we want anyhow. And we're just going to do it by them paying us for the time being. I'm not going to chase anything here.
Nice when you sell a put that you don't mind getting assigned. That is a nice feeling.
It is.
It's a liberating feeling. You mentioned really quickly your Bitcoin gold pairs trade, and you said it switched back in April to gold right now. Give our listeners a quick update on that. What are we talking about there, and why did it switch? And do you foresee that changing between now and the election, sir?
I do. Okay, so what we do is we just use a very simple relative strength calculation that where we compare the relative strength of GBTC or Bitcoin and GLD, the gold ETF. And, GBTC had been on our radar for a very long time in terms of leading on a relative basis compared to gold. But then it was right after the halving. It was the strangest thing. Right after the halving, everybody's beating the drum, and literally within like 2 or 3 days of the halving, gold turned positive to GBTC. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But of course, I have to follow my wingman because, when I don't follow the indicators, when I don't follow our database, I always regret it. So I sold GBTC and bought GLD. We ended up selling the GBTC at like 58 to 60, and we bought GLD at 211. So that was really a good trade for us, one of the best ones. But now we're just beginning to see a little bit of a shift where Bitcoin is beginning to eke out some positiveness on a relative basis to GLD. But here's the thing, Mark, and this is why subscribers pay you the big bucks for subscription, because you're not going to hear this from anyone else, except on this show. Now that the Grayscale GBTC has converted to an ETF, there's really no more premium or discount arbitrage that interests me anymore. So we're going to exchange the GBTC, and we're going to use the Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund. That's GDLC, because it's about 73% Bitcoin, 19 or 20% Ethereum, but that's trading at a 36% discount to net asset value. So because I love looking at value, I love buying things under parity, so to speak. So we're going to be, and I'm telling this to your audience before I even do it to my clients, just out of a due diligence side. Like, it would be wrong for me to make the trade and then broadcast it here on the show. So when this thing flips, and it's probably going to flip this week, we're going to jettison the GBTC and we're going to do the GDLC, again, because of its discount to net asset value. And we think that the returns on this next cycle, the next bull cycle, are going to favor, Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund, only because they're in phase 3 of 4 phases to becoming an ETF. And I want to be on that side of the trade when they do flip to an ETF structure.
Well, it's a big change for you. You've been talking, GBTC forever. Switching out of this, I'm not even that familiar with this Grayscale Digital Large Cap. I need to go check it out. Trading 2062 right now, listeners, up about 6 cents on the year. You can imagine it's had a good run It was 786 a year ago. Listen, up 162%. So take that, NVIDIA. But yeah, this is an interesting one. And you were ahead of the curve on some of these discounts, some of these other products. So listeners,
Mark, for anybody who buys my book, I've got 4 grayscale funds to stay away from because these things are like 300 to 600 to 900% over at a premium to net asset value. And I don't want to monopolize the show, but there's some things you got to stay away from. Investors should know about that too.
I see a newsletter or a blog or something in your future, Mr. Bill, where you just a weekly grayscale update. You know, which ones are you like and which ones are you staying away from? People would read that, I think.
I would so do that. It's just, I got to be honest with you, engagement on LinkedIn or, on Spotify, it's been a little bit to the low side. And yes, I could be doing a better job and with my consistency. But if anybody wants to subscribe to my newsletter on LinkedIn, Bill Ulivieri, I'll be happy to just send me some feedback. Show me that you're interested, and I'll be happy to do a grayscale newsletter, once every a week or two.
Rotation update. Which ones are you in? Which ones are you out of? I think folks would be intrigued by that, listeners. So listeners, are you into this? Are you into the grayscale large cap fund LLC out there, listeners? Interesting stuff out there, listeners. We're going to keep an eye on this one as we keep on rolling. By the way, of course, unfortunately not optionable out there, listeners. So you can't go out there and write the puts on it, but it is an intriguing one if you like a little bit of underlying action. Speaking of underlying action, if that's your jam, if that's your huckleberry, then you must like our next one, which is BitX. This is our buddy, Mr. Greg Magadini's favorite. He's always talking about it on the show, so we've added it to our rotation. Of course, the levered BITO. BITO is not enough for you. Allow me to present BitX at a 31 today, up about 4 points from where it was this time last week. So again, doing what it's supposed to do. BITO up about almost 1.5 points. A BitX up 4 points from our show last week. The ADV obviously much lower, 19,000 down 1,000. So bear that in mind if you're looking at it from an options perspective. Spreads are going to reflect that. And today, like everything else, looking kind of light, only 11,000 contracts on the tape. The vol, though, still a banger, 116, actually up 6 points this week. So when you come into a levered product, it's going to deliver at least on the vol front. And then let's keep rolling out there to another product you folks like to use as your crypto surrogate in your securities account. It's Mara, 1865, up about $2.30 from our show last week. The ADV 221, so still explosive, but that has come down about 15,000 from this time last week. And we've seen that ADV get even higher out there in Mara in the past. Doesn't seem like we're going to hit it today. $1.67 with about 40 minutes left to go in the session. So it could, I suppose, if things get heavy in the last few minutes out there. But right now, not looking like it's going to threaten that ADV. The vol in Mara also ticking up a little bit, up about 2 points to about an 83. And in terms of size positions in Mara, the big dog right now, about 40,000 of the September 30 calls. We talked about these for a while. These seem like they're a leftover remnant from the last time Mara threatened 30. Not that close to it right now, but we got some time till September expiration, even though we need to keep on rolling with the show, listeners, right on into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, a portion of the show where we break down all the action outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now, one of my favorite portions of the show, listeners, where we detail the slugfest that is going on in the market cap out there, especially the bottom half of our top 10. Always a lot of moving and shaking, and that is the case again this week, because our old pal Toncoin, which was hanging out at 9 or 8 forever, it seems like, getting kicked down to the number 10 spot this week, listeners. Toncoin at 13.6 billion with the market cap. What kicked it to the curb? Number 9 or number 10 from last week. It is Tron continuing to claw its way north up to number 9, 14.3 billion worth of market cap. But reigning over them all, listeners, back at its number 8 spot. It's everyone's favorite, maybe your least favorite. Unless you're Elon Musk, then you love it. It is Doge, about 15.5 billion worth of market cap today. And again, once again, firmly ensconced at the number 8 spot. Number 7, it's XRP, 32, almost 33 billion worth of market cap. Number 6, it's USD Coin, 34.6 billion. Number 5, it's our old pal Solana, 74.1 billion. Number 4, it's BNB, 81.5 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, because of course it is, 118 billion worth of market cap. Number 2, it's ETH, 325.2 billion. And the big dog, Bitcoin, 1.2 trillion worth of market cap. Let's get out to number 2 in market cap, number 1 in a lot of your hearts, including, I know, Mr. Bill. He loves it. It's good old ETH looking a little bit frothier, a little bit bigger on the show today than it was this time a week ago. Last week we were at 26.08, kicking off the show this week 27.05, so almost 100 handles to the upside, listeners. The range this week 25.74, coming after our show last week on Tuesday. The high 27.70, so almost exactly a 200-point range on the week. That high came over the weekend on Saturday. Mr. Bill, I know you're a big fan of all things ETH. What caught your eye out there this week, sir?
Again, Mark, I find the concept of the lower highs in Ethereum, the lower highs in Bitcoin. I can't actually necessarily say that for Solana, that's been kind of hanging out up relatively high. But I think what has caught my eye, again, is this continued conversation of, look at Toncoin, give me a break. Like, I thought you were joking when you had me on the show a few months ago, and now it's got a market cap of 35 billion. Obviously, this is a young man's game. But I will say that what has caught my eye is what's called the ecosystem. Like, what kind of ecosystems are out there? It's Ethereum, Solana, Arbitrum, Polygon, Avalanche, Tron, Gnosis Chain. And so I think it's so, like, Toncoin. I mean, come on. I can't keep track of all these tokens. They move so fast. So I think I'm pulling again. I like bigger 35,000 foot views. So to be able to look at Ethereum, Solana, and some of these other ecosystems, I think is really important. So I would say that I like Ethereum, but again, it might just be like IBM. It was, first to the table. It's got great respect. Everybody respects IBM, but like, who in the last year on this show has talked about IBM? No, it's NVIDIA. It's, Palantir. It's artificial intelligence. It's Bitcoin, blockchain. Nobody talks that much about Ethereum anymore, just like nobody really talks about IBM anymore, the horse. So I don't know. It's interesting, but also not that interesting.
ETH, the new IBM, damning it, sir, with faint praise out there. By the way, I think we have a title for the show. It's Toncoin. Come on. Offending all of the Toncoin fans out there, wherever they are out there, listeners. Let's go out to ETH land, see what's going on from a vol and a skew perspective, listeners. And like I said, we had about almost exactly 200-point range. Not enough to keep us elevated on the vol front, but keeping us within spitting distance. The weekly vol front, we had a 59 last week. That's continuing to come in. 54.5 this week. A 30-day vol, so again, a more standardized vol metric. 62.3 last week. 59 this week, so still frothy, but coming in a little over 3 points. And on the longer-term vol front, not much going on there. 72.75 a week ago. 72.25, so coming in a whopping half a point over the course of this week. Skew-wise, we saw a lot of downside bias last week. Most of that seems to be gone, or at the very least cut in half. 7-day skew, so the weekly skew, that was threatening a -5 last week, -4.5. So a lot of attention, a lot of interest being paid to the puts last week. This week, -1.75. So still mildly bearish, but cut almost in half pretty much out there on the week, listeners. In terms of the 30-day skew, that was almost a -4 last week as well, -3.75. This week, coming in 2 points, -1.75 now. And then going out to the 6-month skew, that was almost a +4. This time a week ago, about +3.75. This week, a +2.85. So coming in almost a full point, about 0.9 out there. Now, Mr. Bill, since the last time we chatted, you and I, the much anticipated approval of the ETH ETFs has come to pass. That was also, I know, a big inflection point you were looking for, because you were big on the discounts on the Grayscale ETH, and of course, the Grayscale ETH Classic as well. So what are your thoughts on the ETFs going live, and what are your thoughts on the state of those discounts and those products now, sir?
Well, I tell you, if you go to the Grayscale website and you look for something called a life cycle, you'll see that there are 4 phases of that Grayscale have to, the hoops they have to jump through when they're going to the SEC to get approval to convert to an exchange traded fund. And I'm trying to find it right now. I had a link to it, but there's 4 phases, and Ethereum Classic and the Grayscale Large Cap Fund that I mentioned earlier are already in phase 3 out of 4. So you can actually keep track of where they are in the life cycle. And, Ethereum was just one of those things where it was, the number 2 child it was the grantor trust that they converted to an ETF. And I think it's awesome. I mean, the first guy through the door got shot. That was GBTC. It took years for them to convert to an ETF. And then you saw, as soon as they did, boom, we got like 10 more companies, Fidelity and Franklin Templeton, and all these firms just came out massively, once the first guy was down. And I think Grayscale, again, has figured out, I don't want to say it's the magic formula. I'm just saying that they've finally figured out how to work their way through the process at the SEC correctly, right? Because it's all about legal documentation and making sure you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And I've been just getting email after email after email on all the different grantor trusts that they're creating on Stacks and Horizon and Solana, XRP, Avalanche, like all these things that they're start with a private placement and then they work their way through the regulatory gauntlet. And very excited about what they're doing on the ETH side, on the Ethereum Classic side. And I think once these things become ETFs, I mean, boom, that NAV, both on the positive side, that being trading at a discount to NAV, to the negative side, if you're a retail holding it, to the, if it's too much of a premium, that's gonna hurt some people who are holding Grayscale and not paying attention to what's going on. You got to do your homework, man.
Got to do your homework, indeed. You were very much ahead of the curve on that whole discount, especially on the ETH Classic front. So it'll be interesting to see how all that unfolds as more products are coming online seemingly every day. Let's run through a few more products, and I know Mr. Bill always has a couple in his back pocket to share with us on the show, listeners. Let's go out to Solana, looking a little bit beefier this week than it was last week. 143 and a third is where it was last week. This week, 158.52. It's up a little over 15 handles on the week. XRP, we were just saying last week, can it finally maintain, let's say, a level over 60 cents? And the answer was no. 60.2 cents last week. 58.5 cents this week, down a little over about 1.5 cents on the week. But once again, spiking and then coming back down to earth a little bit. Doge, everyone's favorite, 10 cents last week, 10.5 cents this week, almost 10.6. So hence that death grip on the number 8 spot. Litecoin, 66.43 last week, 63.75 this week, down a little over 2.5, about 268 on the week. Cardano, 33.5 cents last week, 37 cents this week, up about 3.5 cents. Polkadot, 4.45 last week, 4.58 this week. So adding 13 cents to the top, and everyone's favorite, I know Bill's largest holding, Shiba Inu, 1 million zeros, 1376 last week. This week, 1448, so ticking up a little bit. Are Shiba Lambos that far away? I ask you, listeners, but it's time to ask Mr. Bill, which altcoin are burning a hole in your back pocket this week, sir?
Oh, you put me on the spot again. Okay, Mark. So I just want to state for the record, I am not the mouthpiece of Grayscale. Okay, I'm not their mouthpiece. I just like them because I like them, right? Anyhow. So I watched this video this week on the Stacks protocol, STACKS, Stacks protocol. And it was about 35 minutes long. And what I found interesting, and I've mentioned Stacks before, I mean, it's down like 50% already, in 2024, or last year, I should say. But Stacks is a blockchain platform that uses Bitcoin's security platform. In other words, like with Solana and Tron and all these other, layer 2 network protocols, they have to create their own security protocol, whether it's proof of work, proof of stake, proof of history, proof of coverage. In the case of Helium, all these ways of securing the network. Stacks just piggybacks on the Bitcoin network. Now, I don't fully understand exactly how that works, but programmers can easily develop decentralized apps, and boom, the second they create it on the Stacks platform, you get the benefit of the Bitcoin, trillions of hash rates that are out there, millions of trillions of hash rates that defend the network. And when you stake Stacks, when you stake Stacks, I guess you could say, when you stake Stacks, your reward, rather than in Stacks, your reward is in Bitcoin. So here's a way of being a part of a economy, a part of a culture that can build products in the blockchain world, piggyback and bogart Bitcoin's security protocol and any rewards you get in staking you receive in Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin's the value add that we think, there's only like 1.5 million Bitcoin left ever for the next 100 years. This thing goes to where we think it could go. If you're Michael Saylor, you think it's going into the millions. If you think, you're following the plan B or plan G in terms of these guys with their power laws and such of where Bitcoin scarcity should put it at 125,000, 150,000 at the end of this year. But we said that last year and the year before that. So it's anybody's guess. I like stacks as a protocol and potential upside with the fact that they're just borrowing a great security protocol.
There you go, listeners. That's Stacks. STX is the ticker if you are so inclined. Listeners, that music means you've come to the end of another fun journey through the world of crypto. Mr. Bill, thanks for joining me on the show today to talk Bitcoin and ETH Classic and Stacks and your favorite Toncoin, all sorts of good stuff on the show this week. And before we go, sir, if folks want to check out what you have cooking, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, you know what? Tell you what, let's start something new. Just go to LinkedIn, look for me, Bill Ulivieri, subscribe to my newsletter, and if you would send me a direct message and you're interested in more grayscale information, I'd be happy to publish something a little bit more frequently. I just need to know that someone's actually out there paying attention and like and share some of the content now and then. That's all I ask. And Mark, next episode we have to talk about the U.S. dollar Japanese yen unwind, because this is going to be a 10-year interesting conversation that you and I are going to have. Got to keep your eyes on the U.S. dollar versus the Japanese yen. This is a big, big, big deal.
Oh, Bill, getting into the world of FX. Who knew? Yeah. In the meantime, the only place they can get the newsletter is on LinkedIn.
Well, they can subscribe. They can go to cenaclecapital.com and they can send me an email or post it in the form handler, and I can put their email address in our constant contact form email distribution letter. But why don't we just start with LinkedIn? We'll just go from there and make it easy for people.
There you go, listeners. Look him up. He is Bill Ulivieri, Ulivieri. Don't forget that I hanging out there in the middle on the old LinkedIn, and you too can check out his newsletter. I get it all the time. It's a fascinating read, definitely worth the time. And also plug your book while you're at it, sir.
Yes, available on Amazon, a self-published book called The Essential Estate Professional's Toolkit for Recovering Cryptocurrency. And again, this book primarily is designed for people that hold physical cryptocurrency and perhaps you're a estate planning attorney or your financial advisor. It's a way of helping your beloved beneficiaries and your loved ones actually recover the cryptocurrency that you have taken self-sovereign control over. And it's harder to recover cryptocurrency than you might imagine. So yeah, please pick up the book. I'd really appreciate the support and help people figure out what happens to your cryptocurrency when your client dies or when you die, and what kind of information you have to have set aside ahead of time in order to facilitate that to your heirs.
There you go, listeners. Check it out. And while you're checking things out, make sure you check out our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires on all this data we talked about today and a whole bunch more. That is going to do it for us on the network today. Back again tomorrow. Going to be joined by my buddy, Mr. Matt Amberson from Orats, who Bill and I have done a panel with or two about crypto in the past. So it should be fun. He'll be joining me on the advisor's option with some special guests from SIBO to talk all things going on in the world of advisors and options. Should be fascinating. Of course, for all of you listening to this show who are maybe a little bit new to the world of options, make sure you're checking out Options Bootcamp. That is our premier educational show. Been running for over a decade now. And I know a lot of you folks love it. You're probably already listening to it. But if you're not, make sure you're listening to the full network. They'll get you Options Bootcamp and everything else. And we'll be back again next Monday, listeners. Another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.